would like to also thank my friend and our mayor, Lillian DeBaptiste, who's sitting up here in the front row. Thank you for welcoming us to Westchester Borough Hall, which of course is a very special home to me. So thank you. I'm here today with my colleagues, Senator John Kane and Senator Katie Muth. Together, we represent the entirety of Chester County in the Pennsylvania Senate. As you know, the state budget is now almost 2 months late. We're hearing from more and more families, students, workers, community organizations, local municipalities, and school districts who are very worried about what this means for each of our neighbors. Our constituents are concerned about the ongoing impacts of this budget impasse, and so are we. We're concerned about the impacts to education, human services, emergency services, transit, and healthcare. Our message is simple. We need a budget that works for the people of Chester County and the people of Pennsylvania. This week marked the first day of school for many districts in our region. However, the lack of a state budget agreement means the potential for the following: delays to school safety, mental health and academic programs, cuts to arts, music, gifted, AP classes, and support services, fewer extracurricular programs and after-school activities, larger class size, possible layoffs or hiring freezes. Schools are dipping into reserves or borrowing to make ends meet, but the associated costs will be passed on to taxpayers. Did you know that if a school district has to borrow money to cover their expenses because a budget has not been passed and the state dollars have not flowed to them, they will get the state tax dollars. They will never recoup the interest, the cost of the interest to borrow that money. For some of our school districts, that is a huge burden. Schools are dipping into reserves. They are borrowing to make ends meet. And as I said, for many of our school districts, this is a huge burden. In addition to public schools, we've heard about negative impacts to approved private schools, like the Timothy School in Berwyn and the Vanguard School in Malvern, which serve students with autism and special needs. And we know that important early education and pre-K programs are already being impacted. Joining us today is Laura Woolman, a Chester County-based speech pathologist, and her former boss, Megan Riley Keeler. And also with us is Laura's mother, Lynn Strauss. Laura was laid off from her job as an early intervention specialist for programs in Chester, Montgomery, and Delaware County. She was laid off due to the budget impasse. Early intervention is foundational to helping young children with developmental challenges or delays. What is going to happen to these children and their families? It does not have to be this way. We need a budget that works for the people of Chester County and the people of Pennsylvania. For our county social service agencies and the people who rely on them, things are similarly uncertain. Chester County's Human Services departments have not received $10 million in state funding during July and August due to the budget impasse. The county is absorbing those costs for now, but they cannot bridge the gap forever. And speaking of the county, I would like to recognize and welcome my friend and our county commissioner, Vice Chair of the County Commissioners, Marian Moskowitz. Marian, thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Without the funding we need, Chester County cannot provide vital services through the departments of aging, children, youth, and families, health, drug and alcohol services, mental health and intellectual developmental disorders, community transit, community development, veterans affairs, and more. These are services that people rely on for the health, wellness, and a good quality of life. For example, without funding, we'll see a reduction in in-home services for our seniors, important programs for people with disabilities, the 988 call center for mental health crises, and our mobile crisis resolution team. We can do better, and we must do better. We need a budget that works for the people of Chester County and the people of Pennsylvania, and we need it now. We needed it 2 months ago. We've experienced budget delays before. Delays have eliminated or delayed services before, and they have hurt people before. We know what this looks like. We know how this turns out. We don't want to do this again. It is our job to, as senators, as all the senators in Pennsylvania and the House members, to pass a budget that is balanced and that meets the needs of the people of Chester County and the people of Pennsylvania. An annual budget stalemate should not become the new normal. Costs money, and as I have said, and Senator Kaine and Senator Muth will say, they hurt our neighbors and they hurt our communities. Our constituents deserve to know that they can depend on the legislature to do its job, to effectively fund schools and services in a timely way. Our constituents are worried, they're frustrated, and they're annoyed. They're sick of instability and partisan politics interrupting their lives, and frankly, so are we. And that's why we're here. It's time to end this gridlock and move forward. 23 Senate Democrats, that's all of us, are ready to go back to Harrisburg and pass a budget that works for students, schools, families, senior citizens, workers, business owners, for all of us. The House has already passed a budget that does that. It funds schools, human services, transit, and more. They compromised, the House, by lowering the total budget expenditure by $1 billion with a B dollars. The House Democrats have also passed a plan that funds transportation and transit with accountability and oversight requirements as requested by our Republican colleagues. Now it is up to the Senate Republicans to act. Budget talks have stalled because the Republican leadership won't budge. They won't compromise. Like you, we are tired of waiting, and we are concerned. Pennsylvanians deserve peace of mind and a budget that works. Our schools and counties deserve the funding they need to educate our children and support everyone in our community. If you are tired of waiting and you are wondering what you can do, please call Republican leader Senator Pittman and tell him to come to the table for an agreement on this budget that works for the people of Chester County and Pennsylvania. It's about compromise. You may have read or heard the governor's press conference last night, and he outlined some compromises. And so each side needs to compromise. And I can tell you that the Democrats have compromised and are compromising, and we need our Republican colleagues to come together with us and to do the same. So I want to thank you very much for being here, and it is now my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome to the podium Senator John Kane.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank both of my colleagues for being here today and putting this together. Mayor, it's good seeing you. And County Commissioner, it's always good seeing you. As you may know, I'm Senator John Kane. I represent the 9th Senatorial District, which encompasses parts of Delaware County and also Chester County. We are now weeks into a budget impasse. And let's be clear about what that means. This is not some abstract political chess match in Harrisburg. This is about real people, our neighbors, our families, our communities who are paying the price for Republican manufactured obstruction. Pennsylvanians don't live in a budget impasse. We live in the real world, where kids need schools that are funded, where workers need SEPTA to get to their jobs, just like I did when I was a young man, and where folks depend on medical and mental health services to get by. But because Senate Republicans refuse to move forward, schools are left in limbo, counties can't provide critical services, and transit systems like SEPTA are forced to eliminate critical routes, and friends and families of people are being laid off. Folks, the state budget is in 2 months late. That's not putting people first. That's just not politics. That's just plain wrong. Do they want to harm southeastern Pennsylvania? Do they want to harm the economic engine that powers Pennsylvania? Is this a desperate grab from controlling that is hurting our commonwealth? Sounds like it to me. We are all here fighting for a fair budget that respects and invests in all Pennsylvanians. We want classrooms with resources, buses and trains that run, and services that protect our most vulnerable. If you cannot come to the table and agree on that, you no longer deserve your seat. I am tired of working families paying the price for the egos in Harrisburg. Enough is enough. It is time to pass a budget that works for everyone here in Pennsylvania. It is my distinct honor now to introduce State Senator Katie Muth.
Thank you to both of my colleagues for coming together to show Chester County that we are here trying to fight for them in a very hostile political environment in Harrisburg. I'm State Senator Katie Muth. I represent parts of 3 counties, Berks, Chester, and Montgomery County. And as a Chester County resident, I also want to say thank you to Commissioner Moskowitz for your leadership here in the county, holding all sorts of things together all the time, even through COVID and now through this impasse. But leadership here alone in our county is not enough. And we obviously are feeling of an intense strain on our resources and our ability to function and provide necessary resources. I want to credit Senator Comita for trying to schedule a press conference prior to this, and we were told to push the pause button, that there was a deal coming soon and that it wasn't necessary, and that was on July 24th. a month later almost, and 57 days past our constitutionally mandated deadline to enact a state budget. Can you imagine in any other job that you didn't do it for 57 days and still get to keep it and make a paycheck? It is not shocking, unfortunately. My short time in the Senate has revealed some of these political games that are played on a daily basis that many don't always see. Senate sessions held very rarely and also during the workday. And the only silver lining, maybe we can call it that, of this current budget impasse is that perhaps the public, the general public, is paying attention to the state legislature and what happens in your state capital or what doesn't happen in your state capital. As the Senate Republicans have held the majority in the Pennsylvania State Senate for 31 years, since I was 10 years old. You can do the math to see how old I am. And that has shown, this budget impasse is a result of decades of dysfunction, of decades of pay-to-play and failed efforts to pass laws to remove special interests from our legislative process. And as Senator Kane mentioned, this is a manufactured, I call it a manufactured crisis. It's sort of like when we watch the federal government come down to the wire, as if all these things have to happen at 2 a.m., knowing your deadline, but it's just so we, the people, don't have time to read it. And unfortunately, that's often the environment in Harrisburg, where the Senate called us back recently to vote on a insult of a budget and an insult of a transit mechanism for the transit funding. And we got that amendment with maybe 39 minutes to read it, with no stakeholder feedback. And so they knew what they were doing. They all knew we were coming back. The Senate majority party, per the Senate rules, sets our schedule, tells us when we can come to work, tells us what bills we will be voting on. The minority party has zero power. We serve as minority chairs of committees that can't hold hearings or put bills up for a vote. So when I say we are at the mercy of the majority party, that is in its most true definition of being at the mercy of. We can try to amend bills, and we will be voted down and tabled, and the Senate rules also allow for a majority vote to end all floor debate. So again, I hope the silver lining is that more people pay attention to what happens in the state Senate, and I think a lot more people probably know Senator Pittman's name, but that doesn't change the reality of what we're facing right now. And unfortunately, there's a moment here to be met, and it could be a good moment or a bad moment. And I think that, I hope that my party, the Democratic Party, steps up and meets this moment with a vision and not a Band-Aid. And a vision means that we need to change Pennsylvania's overall very regressive tax system. And that starts with some very easy solutions. For 57 days that I've been waiting to be called back to work to vote on a budget, I've generated some great ideas, some of which my colleagues have introduced into legislation. But there is revenue on the table to not just fully fund public transit, all of our roads and bridges. I think that every bridge in Pennsylvania should be safe to drive on. I do. I think every road should be a safe road to drive on. I am humble enough to say, yes, of course, I fight for my district, but to know how an economy works statewide. We need the whole state to be functioning and for the whole state to be safe and fully funded. And that's just how an economy works. And Pennsylvania leaves a lot of tax revenue on the table that could be used to fully fund public education, fully fund childcare, fully fund all of these things. And there are mechanisms that could be passed to do so. And that starts by making sure that we, the people, the residential and small business taxpayers of Pennsylvania, no longer have to foot the burden and carry that financial responsibility for all of our public infrastructures by closing a tax loophole that would require multi-state corporations to pay their fair share. Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's, name your Fortune 500 company, they are exempt from paying corporate net income tax in the state of Pennsylvania. You pay more money than Home Depot or Amazon or Tesla. Name your big dog, right? And so again, revenue left on the table that we haven't tapped into. There's a tax exemption for data centers passed in 2021 for their equipment. I don't know about you, I paid sales tax on my MacBook Pro. So if a billionaire company can't pay their fair share in taxes to do business here, again, revenue left on the table. And I want to mention that The combined reporting I just talked about, closing the corporate tax loophole, is a bill by Representative Fiedler, HB 1610, sitting in the Senate Finance Committee as we speak. So there are solutions on the table that could be voted on. And these Senate Republicans not only didn't vote on five transit bills that the House sent over, there's Representative Fiedler's bill to require this combined reporting, because right now, Pennsylvania businesses that only do business in Pennsylvania, they pay their fair share in taxes, just not the multi-state ones. We also know that we are the second largest methane gas producer in the nation here in our drill baby drill Commonwealth. And as much as I have very strong feelings about science and climate change, you know, there's no severance tax on that. Or maybe we could tax the billions of gallons of waste produced annually by that industry and clean it up, and we would have more revenue on the table.